Hi there, this is Nishanth Reghunath once again welcoming you to my lessons in income tax. So we were discussing about allowances for a salaried assessee, right? And under allowances we saw four groupings. So we finished the first grouping where an exemption was provided based on actual expenditure, and we were in the middle of the second grouping, which is exemptions based on a fixed amount. We saw a couple of items falling under that grouping, and we stopped once we reached house rent allowance, and I had mentioned in the end of that video, that house rent allowance is one of the most important allowances for the purpose of your examination. And in this video we'll have a continuation of that study wherein we'll be learning about house rent allowance and the third and fourth grouping of allowances. So let's check what house rent allowance is. So from the name itself, it is self-explanatory, right? It is an allowance provided by an employer to an employee for the purpose of meeting employees' rental expenses. So it is an allowance provided for meeting house rent by whatever name called. So allowance from employer to employee for the purpose of paying rent. Got it? So what's crucial here is the employee needs to live in a rented accommodation. If the employee has an owned accommodation, then this allowance will not be available. Understood? So I'm presuming you got a general idea of what this allowance is. Now let's see how we can calculate exemption for this allowance. So exemption here will be calculated after comparing three items. Two items based on actuals and one item based on a percentage. So keep that in mind. Two items based on actuals and one item based on percentage. So there are three items out of which we have to take the least as the exemption. So let's check what those three items are. First one, actual HRA received. That is the first actual item. So actual HRA received. Second item, actual rent paid minus 10% of salary. So herein we have two of our actuals. One is HRA received and the other is based on the rent paid. And when it's calculated on rent paid, we deduct 10% of salary. And finally, the percentage criteria. 50% of salary if house is in a metro city, or 40% of salary if the house is in any other place. So out of these three, take the lowest value and use it as your exemption under section 1013A, house rent allowance. Got it? Now one thing, salary here refers to only basic pay plus DA forming part of salary and percentage commission. Nothing else is to be included. Basic pay, DA which is forming part of salary or forming part of retirement benefits, and percentage commission alone, nothing else. Fine? Got the whole structure of this allowance? Now one more thing that I want to tell you is, see, this allowance is provided by an employer to employee for the purpose of meeting the employee's rental expense. What if the employer is not paying the employee anything? Or what if the assessee is not a salaried person who's not receiving HRA? So if the assessee is not receiving HRA, the assessee can take a deduction for paying rent not under salary income but under deductions section. Under chapter 6A deductions, assessee can take a deduction for the purpose of paying rent under section 80GG. So in that study of 80GG, you will see what are the conditions to be satisfied in order for an assessee to take deduction for rental payments. Alright. So 80GG pertains to an assessee who doesn't receive HRA. Got it? Also one more thing that I want you to keep in mind. While learning perquisites, you will come across a perquisite by the name rent-free accommodation. So we finished retirement benefits, now we are into allowances. Next, after allowances, we have perquisites. Under perquisites, we have a perquisite called rent-free accommodation. That is accommodation provided by the employer to employee. Don't get these two mixed. That is rent-free accommodation and HRA. Completely two different items. Fine? So with that, I'm done with house rent allowance, and by this we finish the second category of grouping for allowances. Now going to the third category, which is fully exempted allowances. Very simple. Everything will fit under this single slide. Let's check what they are. Following allowances are fully exempted. Allowance number 1. allowance paid by government to an Indian citizen who is a government employee outside India. So any allowance paid by the Indian government to an Indian citizen who is working for the government outside India is completely exempt. Also, any perquisites paid to such employees exempt as well. Point number 2. Any allowance paid by the United Nations organization to their employees. Also, their basic salary is not taxable. Fine. So, government to government employee who is an Indian citizen. UNO to their employee and their salary as well. Third one. Allowances to High Court or Supreme Court judges. So, any allowance received by High Court or Supreme Court judge is exempt. Also, there is a compensatory allowance under Article 222 subsection 2 which is paid to a judge during the course of being transferred during service. So, if there is any compensatory allowance paid to a judge, that will also be exempt. So, Indian government to Indian government employee working outside India. UNO to their employees. Any allowance received by High Court or Supreme Court judges inclusive of any compensatory allowance received in the process of being transferred during service. Now that's it. That's all what comes under fully exempted allowances. Just these 4 items. Pretty easy to remember. Now going to the last section, wherein we'll see a set of allowances which are 100% taxable, and by that what it means is they have zero exemption. So they are fully 100% taxable. So this grouping contains a set of allowances which are not covered under the previously studied categories, and few of the examples are as what you see in the screen right now. So these are the common examples. Take a note of them. And I'm presuming there is nothing much that I would have to explain regarding them. If at all you have any doubts, just let me know. I'm more than happy to explain. So DNS allowance, overtime allowance, city compensatory allowance, tiffin allowance and whatnot. A lot of items. Telephone, special, servant. So remember when I told you about assistant allowance, helper allowance, which we saw under the first category. It is not the same as servant allowance. Yeah. So servant allowance is fully taxable. We discussed it in the first grouping itself, and also we discussed about uniform allowance under the first category, and there itself I had mentioned uniform allowance is not the same as dress allowance. Dress allowance would be fully taxable. I haven't mentioned it in the list, but then just keep that in mind. Uniform allowance has an exemption, but dress allowance, no, it doesn't have an exemption. Got it? So that's it about the whole set of allowances that you have to learn. I'm hoping that this study was very effective for you guys to understand the whole concept of allowances and understand what are the different groupings, what are the items falling under those groupings and all. So if at all you have any doubts, please feel free to contact me. I'm available always in the chat window, message box or Q&A window. So reach out, ask me doubts. I'm more than happy to sort it out. So with that, closing this study for allowances, let's head to perquisites. That is the final part of study under income from salaries next. So see you in my study for perquisites. Take care. Goodbye.